for generations.
Dates in the Bible don't quite match the marriage certificate. Uh-oh. And you have found us. It's America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes, and ExtremeGenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, on the program where we shake your family tree and watch the nuts fall out. This segment of the show is brought to you by Legacy Tree Genealogists, LegacyTree.com. And our guest today, this is going to be really fun. We have Ken Nelson on. He's a World War I specialist with FamilySearch.org. And now that we have gotten into the summer months and the 100th anniversary of all the things that happened with the United States and World War I, he's going to tell you what you can find on FamilySearch relating to all this now, what's going to be up right through the Centennial anniversary of the Armistice, which will be on November 11th. And then later in the show, we're going to talk to a guy named Rick Pettit. And Rick and his wife have gotten into a project that I think has overwhelmed them a little bit, but you're going to want to hear what they're up to, actually tracing down people even mildly related from centuries ago in villages that don't even exist anymore in Germany. I mean, it's a crazy story, what they're doing, how they're doing it, why they're doing it. I think you're going to find it pretty fascinating. Right now, it is time to head out to Boston, Massachusetts, and talk to my good friend, the chief genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society and AmericanAncestors.org. It is David Allen Lambert. Hi, David. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Actually, I'm not in Beantown today. I'm in Upper Canada, in Guelph, Ontario, for the Ontario Genealogical Society Conference, and I'm not lecturing. I'm actually a busman's holiday, attending lectures.
Shut up.
With people like Amy Johnson-Crow and Melanie McComb and others, and it's a great conference going on. And I also have friends that are at the California Jamboree, who I know are listeners to Extreme Genes, so a shout-out to them, I suppose, is probably in order.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you're having a good time there,
Well, continuing on our story from last week, GDPR is still shaking the boots of most genealogists that have blogs and all that. I know that nothing's really changed from what I've heard, other than the Y search and mito search going down from Family Tree DNA. Have you heard anything on your end on closures or anything?
No, I've heard talk that there are some blogs that have disappeared because people are just too concerned that they aren't going to be able to handle all the changes that are necessary to be compliant. And nobody wants to take the risk of, an $11 million fine. So we are seeing some fallout with some of the big companies. I know there's already been suits filed against Google and Facebook through this law. And that actually took place the very first day it was up there. So we'll see where it goes. But it is affecting the genealogy world, and I don't think we're quite done seeing the effects of it yet.
No, that's very true. Well, I'll tell you, with DNA, it's amazing, and of course with GEDMatch.com, with the Golden State Killer case recently in the news, now authorities are looking at maybe reopening the Zodiac Killer case with the same type of technology.
Wouldn't that be something? I mean, that goes back to the late 60s, and he was even taunting authorities in the early 70s. So we're talking almost 50 years ago. So if the guy's still living and they've got some DNA sample that would work for that, wouldn't that be an amazing case to break?
It's amazing to think that with just a little bit of spit, we can break a cold case open. So, and people have asked me about the DNA and how do you feel about GEDMatch. My personal thing is if my second cousin murdered somebody and murdered dozens of people, you know what? Glad to help out.
Yep, absolutely.
Sometimes with DNA, it's not the recent people we're looking at, it's the ancient people. In fact, Southeast Asia has had a human population there for about 70,000 years. But now DNA has proved that the farmers that settled in Southeast Asia actually came from China about 4,500 years ago, and they've been able to track this by DNA.
And we are starting to see more of those migration routes throughout all parts of the world as a result of DNA, a picture that we were never really able to have prior to this time.
It really is amazing what can be discovered. And speaking of things that have been discovered, in an abandoned trailer was recently found by a couple that actually were given this to live in. They were homeless. The Purple Heart of a Daryl Terrence. Daryl's belongings were stolen, and they turned up, and it's being returned to the family in Salt Lake City, Utah. He was a Korean War veteran.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, the Purple Heart was stolen. They found it in Oregon. And I love the exclamation point on this story. This couple that's now living in this trailer, they're expecting their first child soon. They made the effort to get the Purple Heart back to the family, and they're going to name their first child after this veteran.
That's amazing.
I know.
Well,
it's incredible.
I think that they probably need to have a Purple Heart repro made with the name of the veteran just for the significance of the baby to know where he got his name from.
Exactly.
Well, I'll tell you, we all learned our ABCDs when we were little kids, but how long ago were they teaching that? In fact, recently they have found a 3,400-year-old piece of inscribed limestone from ancient Egypt that scholars believe is maybe the earliest mention of the mnemonic ABCD, at least in Egyptian. So this may be a place that you're going to find valuable clues as to where our alphabet may have originated.
Unbelievable.
Well, every week we'd like to give a blogger spotlight, and this one is by Jenny Hawran. And Jenny has an interesting blog. It's like-herding-cats.com.
Like herding cats.
Yeah, isn't that, looking for ancestors is like herding cats.
It is.
And this is her personal family history journey. And as I've said before, tell your story. It's probably very entertaining, informative, and Jenny's blog is quite fun. And take a peek at it.
And GDPR compliant.
Hoping it is. Like I say, all my blogger spotlight people out there, please let me know if you shut your blog down. And hey, I don't want to forget, if you're not a member of the New England Historic Genealogical Society, NEHGS, American Ancestors, you can go to our website on AmericanAncestors.org. You can join as a member and save $20 by using the checkout coupon code EXTREME.
All right, David. Well, listen, have a great time in Canada, okay?
I shall. I'm a dual citizen, so hopefully they won't revoke it before I come back across the country line.
There you go. All right, have a good one, buddy. Talk to you next week. And coming up next, we're going to talk to a World War I expert, Ken Nelson, about what FamilySearch is doing now that the Centennial celebration has come for America's entrance into World War I. And it's going to continue on through the time of the armistice, November 11th, the centennial of that as well. He'll fill you in on what's waiting for you on FamilySearch coming up next in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Legacy Tree Genealogist is a proud sponsor of Extreme Genes. Based in Salt Lake City, Utah, near the world's largest family history library, we've worked with genealogists all over the globe since 2004 to track down records, find your ancestors, and the stories that bring your legacy to life. We also analyze DNA test results, help you join lineage societies, and find missing cousins. Legacy Tree is the recommended research partner of MyHeritage.com and is the world's highest client-rated genealogy firm. Call us toll-free at 1-800-818-1476 or register online to get a free estimate. Right now, you can save up to $100 on professional genealogy research. But hurry, this offer expires at the end of the month. Even experienced researchers can benefit from our proven and experienced staff of specialists who can bring new approaches to old problems. Learn from our free genealogy tips on our blog at legacytree.com/blog. Legacy Tree Genealogists. We do the research. You enjoy the discoveries.
Did you know that FamilySearch Family Tree is available through a powerful new mobile app experience? That's right. Now you can view, edit, and even add information to ancestors in your family tree whenever and wherever you are. You no longer need to wait to get home or make a date with your computer to view or update your family tree. You can add details to your tree when visiting with family or when capturing details from a trip to the cemetery. You can share new family history discoveries from classroom settings. You can even make the most of your time when waiting for doctor appointments or car repairs. Get started today by downloading the free FamilySearch Family Tree app to your Apple or Android device. Visit FamilySearch.org/tree app to get the Family Tree app for free. Exploring and expanding your family tree has never been more convenient. Visit FamilySearch.org/tree app to download the FamilySearch Family Tree mobile app today.
Hey, Genies, Fisher here with a shout out to our Patrons Club members at patreon.com/extremegenes. This is where friends of the show support Extreme Genes for as little as $1 a month, all the way up to the cost of a very nice burger each month. I mean, a really juicy one. You can support the show and enjoy various special Patrons Club member benefits, such as acknowledgement on extremegenes.com, special bonus podcasts from expert guests like Maureen Taylor, the photo detective, CC Moore, your genetic genealogist, great storytellers and experts on record sets from all over the world. We even offer expert advice on specific questions challenging your research. So go to patreon.com/extremegenes and get signed up. We love sharing your genealogical journey with you on our Extreme Genes Patrons Club. After all, what would you rather have? Inspiring and informative content or another greasy burger? The choice is yours. And thanks for supporting Extreme Genes. Hey, welcome back. It's America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and extremegenes.com. Fisher here, your radio root sleuth. And it is that Centennial celebration going on all this year as we recognize not only the end of World War I, but the contributions of so many American men and women in World War I. And one of the great experts on this is a friend of ours from over at FamilySearch.org. Ken Nelson is on the line. And Ken, we talked last fall about your grandfather and his time in World War I. And I know you've kind of spent a lot of time in 1918 this year already.
It's been quite a journey. I've really enjoyed just getting a feel for what America was like 100 years ago, and particularly for my grandfather, Harold. And since I talked to you last fall, I did learn a few additional things about his military service that I didn't even know about.
Huh.
So the research and the quest and the new information you always find continues.
Isn't that fun? It never stops. And I keep thinking on some of my people, there isn't another thing. There is nothing more I could possibly learn about this person. And then, boop, up pops something new. And that is always such an exciting moment. Well, part of this whole thing, though, has to do with the fact that you over at Family Search are commemorating this centennial, and it began on Memorial Day weekend. Tell us about what's going on there.
Well, yes, we've got some things happening over here to remind family historians, genealogists, and users that come to our site about this centennial observance of when America got into the war, not only in 1917, but when the troops started arriving in 1918, which is the centennial this year. Mm-hmm. So when you go to our website, you'll be noticing maybe a blog or two on the war and some of the activities, and you should look for a landing page that will help you access a lot of the records that we've already initially published on our site. It will also be a window into some of the new indexing projects that will be put up to help researchers get some additional information. So we'll have some indexing projects come up and just some other sources like that that will get you engaged in this, because we want this as an opportunity for us to honor and remember those who served or were impacted by World War I. Because conflicts like World War I greatly impact our family.
Well, and when you consider, too, that World War I was really World War Part A and led to World War Part B because of the armistice.
Absolutely. And when you look at the numbers of the millions that were engaged and the casualties and how it impacted our family history, these kind of stories are the ones, in many cases, that are passed down through the generations of our ancestors that fought in these conflicts. These enduring stories just seem to always pop up around the family dinner table at key points in our nation's history.
You know, I think back to when I was a kid, and the Civil War was 100 years earlier. Right? And I knew many people who had known Civil War soldiers. And now I'm the older guy in my family who knew some people who fought in World War I. And it's just the way it just keeps progressing like this. And so to have actually known some of these people and actually look at some of their records and to remember some of those interactions is an amazing thing to me. So how has this affected you, Ken? I mean, you spent all this time in 1918 researching a lot of these things, and your dad. Have you found any new stories out that have really touched your heart when you've gotten into this exploration?
Well, one of the unique things about this conflict is how it ended with the signing of the armistice, which means the soldiers on both sides of the trench knew precisely when the war was to end or when the shooting would stop, and that was 11 a.m. And yet the armistice was signed a few hours earlier that morning, and so the word filtered down through the command to the soldiers in the trenches. But yet the war continued right up until the very end, to the very minute.
Why?
That, I guess, we'll leave for historians to debate why the soldiers in charge continue to fight the war right up until the very end. But I was reading the story of perhaps the last, certainly American soldier, but maybe one of the last soldiers to die in the war. His name was Henry Guenther. And he was from, I think, the Baltimore, Maryland area. I think he was in the 313th Infantry. And I don't have the particulars of the story, but his time of death is recorded at 10:59 a.m., 1 minute before the armistice took effect. Sergeant Henry Guenther lost his life on virtually the last, not only the last day of the war, but virtually the last minute of the war.
That is so tragic. And you would think any of these guys, why are they fighting? Because they know that it's going to come back both ways. You know, you could lose your life in the last moment. You would just think that common sense would say, hey, let's just run out the last 5-6 hours, whatever it is, right?
Just hold your positions. But the war continued up to the very last minute. And even Harold talked about how the battlefield just sort of went instantly quiet. It left that kind of an indelible impression with the soldiers. They were so used to the sound of the field artillery and the gunfire and the machine gun fire, and then the battlefield just went quiet.
Was there any talk of him going out, your grandfather going out and actually mingling with the former enemy at that point?
He never really talked about that. Other than, and I don't know if I mentioned this last fall, but he did recount a story where he was out on the battlefield, and he didn't really say when, with a buddy of his in his tank battalion, and they were just walking the battlefield. He excused himself and went back to his tank to work on, I think, on his machine gun or whatever, and his buddy stayed out on the battlefield. And he mentioned that his buddy kicked this blanket, and it was mined and exploded.
Oh.
And he never really said what happened to him after that, but he never saw him again. And I just read that story, and I thought a chance encounter with maybe a landmine or something like that really could have altered my family history.
Yes, absolutely right.
And that's a story I just sort of uncovered last fall. It just sort of really hit me about how precious life is and how it can change in an instant, particularly for a soldier on a battlefield.
Yeah, absolutely. They have no idea what time their time may come. How many Americans were involved in World War I?
Well, we raised an army of about 4 million, 4.5, but about 2.8 million actually went overseas. Mm-hmm. We sent about 42 divisions, and about 29 of them saw active combat in France. We lost about 100,000 men in really hard active campaigning in just over maybe 100 days. We weren't in it very long.
No.
But when we got into it in the summer and particularly into the fall, lost a lot of men really, really quickly.
Well, didn't they ship like in June? Isn't that when they went, when they made the crossing?
Well, we had a few in 1917, but starting, I'd say, probably in the spring of 1918, as we went into the summer and fall, then the numbers really started climbing, and eventually we had about 2.8 million soldiers on the ground in France.
Mm-hmm. There were a lot of Americans, though, who went over and, say, fought on behalf of Great Britain and France, and like the Air Corps, right?
Right. We had a few individuals that enlisted in the British and the French Army before the United States get involved. The Lafayette Escadrille, the French Air Force, we had some Americans in there. And you can find some Americans in the British Army and French enlistments as well. So we did have a few individuals before we actually got in as a country. So
with all that's going on concerning World War I on FamilySearch right now, and I assume it's going on through at least November 11th of this year, right?
That's when the culmination all sort of comes together, when the war finally ends with the armistice.
Sure.
So with our landing page that we've got and the new indexing projects and the blog articles that we'll have to just make it an opportunity for us to, like I say, remember and honor those members of our family that serve. So hopefully with the photos and the stories that we find, we'll get them uploaded and we'll be able to share them. One additional thing we're doing is really putting a lot of content into our wiki. So there will be a lot of sources there that you can look at as well, identifying county histories that were written on a particular community's contribution to the war county histories. A lot of them are being digitized, and unit histories are being digitized. And this is where you'll get the kind of pictures and stories that really help you understand what it was like 100 years ago. So our landing page will be sort of your entry point to a lot of exciting resources, and you can certainly help with the indexing effort of more service records and other war-related records, so we can help each other in our research discover how this war impacted our family history. So there'll be a lot of exciting things happening on FamilySearch in relation to the Great War.
Yeah, right on through the summer and into the fall. What about photographs? Can we upload family photographs in a special place just concerning World War I?
I don't think it's just a special area, but you can upload pictures and stories on FamilySearch and the memories that you have on there. I uploaded my grandfather's picture that he always had hanging in the hall. And it's just a constant reminder as I look at this young 22, 23-year-old doughboy who I think perhaps really sort of introduced me to family history, and this is perhaps the first event that I really sort of became aware of. And it was just been an exciting journey to see what he went through.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Did he have Civil War ancestors as well, people he might have interacted with previously?
He didn't have any Civil War ancestors, but my mother did. So I had an Irishman who fought in the Union Army from the state of Maine who died in 1864 and is buried in Louisiana.
Well, like they say, freedom isn't free, right?
That is so true, and we just want to remember their courage and their sacrifice through the pictures and the stories so that their memory will never be forgotten.
He's Ken Nelson. He's a World War I expert over at FamilySearch.org, and they got some great things happening there right now, all the way through the summer, into the fall, and culminating, of course, on November 11th, the Centennial of the Armistice, the end of the war to end all wars. And as we well know, unfortunately, it wasn't even close, was it?
Yep. With World War II, it just sort of continued in the 20th century.
Ken, thanks so much for your time and great work, and congratulations on some of the materials you're finding. It sounds absolutely fascinating, and I look forward to really examining what's going on right now with the World War I records at FamilySearch.
This will be exciting because there's always another record to search, and there's always another story to uncover.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
And coming up next, we're going to talk to a man who, along with his wife, has been engaged in a project that is completely unique and also has something to do with Germany. You're going to want to hear what they're doing. Coming up next in 5 minutes on Extreme Genes.
Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chartmasters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartmasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chartmasters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chartmasters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chartmasters today at FamilyChartmasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chartmasters will give the greatest care to your family history. Scientific studies have proven that youth who know even a little bit about their family history perform better academically and have a greater sense of personal confidence and stability. Genealogy is its own incredible superpower that arms our children with super strength. But how do you get your child or grandchild interested in studying their family history? That kind of stuff is just for grandmas, right? Not anymore. ZapTheGrandmaGap.com leaps the generation gap in a single bound. Author Janet Hawran provides you with useful and timely advice on helping the young people in your life become engaged in their own family history. Janet has an entire collection of books to inspire the young and the young at heart in fun, interactive ways. She also offers creative tips and advice on her blog and in her free weekly newsletter. Stop by zapthegrandmagap.com today to sign up for Janet's free email newsletter with 52 weeks of easy tips, free downloads, and order your set of resource books and workbooks.
And we are back. It is America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth. And I got to tell you about a strange experience I had a while back. It was last year sometime. I dropped in on a neighbor and his wife, and we were in their kitchen, and they just had just papers strewn all over the top of their countertop in there. And I'm looking, and there were family history things. And he's really into that. So is she. And I was asking him about this, and he told me the details of this crazy project that they were both into and having a great time with. And as time has gone on, I thought, I really need to share this with you, the listener, exactly what they're doing. And I have my neighbor, Rick Pettit, on the line right now. How are you, Rick?
Hey, I'm doing fine.
Tell me about this crazy thing. I mean, I know this is your wife's side, but this involves not just your wife's family and extended family. It takes in entire communities. So how did this thing start, and explain what this was that I was seeing?
So there's some family history work that had been done on my wife's side by her grandmother. She actually hired a professional genealogist back some years ago to get some beginnings of family history. Her grandmother was from a little area near Spremberg, Germany, which is kind of on the Polish border, sort of East Germany.
That's kind of challenging, isn't it? Because a lot of the borders have changed over the years, and the jurisdictions have changed, and wars, of course, have lost a lot of records. So that's a tricky area.
It is. And they had some work that was there, but there was a cubic line in particular that had been kind of troublesome in figuring it all out. And so we wanted to go and explore this line. And so we started studying the area. And you're right, it has changed hands through wars and through history. But what we found was really interesting. This region actually is a different culture than the rest of Germany, a different language. The cultural language, the historic language of this region is being lost like it is in a lot of places to some degree. They tend to call themselves Sorbish currently. And so we realized that chances are this little enclave was fairly insular. I mean, they spoke their own language, they had their own culture.
Yeah.
And so we realized, okay, so we find Kubiks, we find a few other family names. Even if we don't know how to tie these people in, if they're of that surname, which, by the way, Kubik is not found widely across Germany, they're all cousins. They're all related.
That's all family, right?
So we decided we'd go into FamilySearch, and we pulled out pretty much every Kubik we could find in this little town, the little town by Spremberg, which is called Jessen. And then we come to find out that this place was strip-mined out of existence.
It doesn't exist anymore. There's no there.
So I saw it on some site that God created this beautiful place, but the devil put coal underneath it.
Oh.
This is not the anthracite black coal that we have, like in Pennsylvania. This is brown coal. This is lignite, and it's 100 feet under the ground or something. They basically just took the whole land apart, and this started back mid-1800s maybe, and then was big in the Nazi era, and then continued on through the years, and they basically annihilated.
There's nothing there. There are no buildings, there are no people, right? No churches.
Yeah, the churches that these records were attached to, they were destroyed, and the cities were gone. The people had to go elsewhere. It became a big hole in the ground. Right now, at the place where Jessen approximately would have stood, it was one of the earlier sites. And so it's already becoming forested again, and maybe they're even beginning to populate it again.
Crazy.
In some respects.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not the same place it was. It was a big hole in the ground. It maybe been filled in or whatever. It's not even a ghost town. You're really you're doing.
But you have the names of these people,
places.
so you're putting together you're putting the population back to this town or these towns that don't exist anymore. How many names have you come up with relating to this Kubik family?
Well, I would say, of course, when you start with Kubiks, it spreads.
Right.
I would say just a few hundred. I don't think we're above 1,000. I think we're just a few hundred names. But it's been a fascinating journey
I'll bet.
to see what's going on here. And
are they like puzzle pieces for you, Rick, or where you just, okay, I've got this name here. Oh, wait a minute, this fits in with this one over here, and you're starting to assemble the lines to see how they're all related?
Well, yeah. So the process you described, when you introduced this topic, was we write down every birth we find on a little slip of paper. write down the marriages, and of course you're looking for the birth parents matching the marriages, and so then you start to assemble families just on these little pieces of paper that are all just tiny little pieces of paper. You're kind of clipping them together and stuff like this. And look, here's the grandparent. And, there's another child. This child got married.
How do you keep
died.
track of all of this stuff? I mean, that's crazy.
Well, what we'd do is we'd get it all basically kind of assembled with a bunch of paper clips, so just a bunch of little notes kind of tacked together, and then we go into FamilySearch, and we'd actually start to enter the information, and you can actually connect the records directly to
the individuals.
To the individuals and the families and everything like that. And so then you construct it out there, and then, of course, it starts to give you hints about other people. And sometimes we find these islands of family history, a few generations that are linked together, several generations perhaps, and children and so forth, but then we don't really have them necessarily even attached to anybody else, So there's sort of this island floating around out there. And then sometimes you now will find links between those islands. So this is our hope that as we continue this work, that these islands will become continents,
Right.
And that we can link them together. And of course, in certain places we've found connections to Lori's family history directly, and others we have not yet found any link, though we believe that they're cousins.
Sure.
And there are certain windows of time and place where the records are of good quality, and others where they're not so good.
Not so good. So have you done a lot of research into the history of this town, and are there neighboring towns, too, that are involved in this?
Yeah, when we're looking in these areas, we're kind of making the assumption that the people that are relatively close geographically are likely to be the ones that are getting married, and using that as an assumption to guide our searches.
How far out do you go? How many miles?
The further out we go, the more skeptical we get that it's the right bride, the right groom,
Right, yeah.
And so I would say that we're pretty comfortable if we're within 20 kilometers.
Sure.
Relatively comfortable if we're within 40 kilometers. Starts getting too much further than that, then maybe we start getting a little doubtful. But people do move around some. And, of course, as you get to a later time, moving around became more the thing. And eventually, Lori's grandma left this area and went over to Osterode, Germany, in the very center of Germany, and married her grandpa. And there were groups of Wendish that left for Australia and even Texas, interestingly enough. There's a little town in Texas called Service.
What about travel plans? Are you going to go over and see these places, or what's left of them?
I would like to. We've talked about it. We haven't ever done it. I would like to go out and visit the museum and maybe even interact with them. And it's a fascinating topic.
Sure.
These cities that are no longer.
Right. Well, and here's one final question for you. Are you hearing from any distant cousins, people who descend from this Kubik family, because of the work?
We have had a very small amount of interaction there, and I wonder if the reason why we've had less is because this diaspora happened. So that it's not like you have a history of people that all grew up in the same town and they're still there, and they became disconnected, I think. And so often you find places, there's been a lot of work done, a lot of, you're always running across lines that are already joined in and all this kind of stuff. There's not a lot of work going on in these towns. We do not run across very many other people that work in this area. So we actually have been a little surprised at how little, but we have had some small amount of interaction.
Unbelievable. Great project, Rick. And, of course, he's been doing it for years. And what do you use for your kitchen now, since that is now your headquarters?
Oh, well, we don't have it out all the time, but we get it out periodically and try to move forward with it. And we've had several surnames that we've gotten into that are in Lori's lines, and some of them have some broad exposure over Germany, but a lot of them are very regional names.
He's Rick Pettit. He and his wife, Lori, have been going to town collecting the names of her relatives in these towns in Germany from the 19th century that no longer exist, and try to put together how they were all related. What a great project. Thanks for coming on, Rick.
Good talking to you.
All right, thanks, Rick. And coming up next, we're going to talk preservation with Tom Perry, our preservation authority from tmcplace.com, in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Legacy Tree Genealogist is a proud sponsor of Extreme Genes. Based in Salt Lake City, Utah, near the world's largest family history library, we've worked with genealogists all over the globe since 2004 to track down records, find your ancestors, and the stories that bring your legacy to life. We also analyze DNA test results, help you join lineage societies, and find missing cousins. Legacy Tree is the recommended research partner of MyHeritage.com and is the world's highest client-rated genealogy firm. Call us toll-free at 1-800-818-1476 or register online to get a free estimate. Right now, you can save up to $100 on professional genealogy research. But hurry, this offer expires at the end of the month. Even experienced researchers can benefit from our proven and experienced staff of specialists who can bring new approaches to old problems. Learn from our free genealogy tips on our blog at legacytree.com/blog. Legacy Tree Genealogist. We do the research. You enjoy the discoveries.
Did you know that FamilySearch Family Tree is available through a powerful new mobile app experience? That's right. Now you can view, edit, and even add information to ancestors in your family tree whenever and wherever you are. You no longer need to wait to get home or make a date with your computer to view or update your family tree. You can add details to your tree when visiting with family or when capturing details from a trip to the cemetery. You can share new family history discoveries from classroom settings. You can even make the most of your time when waiting for doctor appointments or car repairs. Get started today by downloading the free FamilySearch Family Tree app to your Apple or Android device. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to get the Family Tree app for free. Exploring and expanding your family tree has never been more convenient. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to download the FamilySearch Family Tree mobile app today.
Hey, Genies, Fisher here with a shout out to our Patrons Club members at patreon.com/Extreme Genes. This is where friends of the show support Extreme Genes for as little as $1 a month, all the way up to the cost of a very nice burger each month. I mean, a really juicy one. You can support the show and enjoy various special Patrons Club member benefits, such as acknowledgement on extremegenes.com, special bonus podcasts from expert guests like Maureen Taylor, the photo detective, CC Moore, your genetic genealogist, great storytellers and experts on record sets from all over the world. We even offer expert advice on specific questions challenging your research. So go to patreon.com/Extreme Genes and get signed up. We love sharing your genealogical journey with you on our Extreme Genes Patrons Club. After all, what would you rather have? Inspiring and informative content or another greasy burger? The choice is yours. And thanks for supporting Extreme Genes. Hey, it is time to talk preservation on America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and extremegenes.com. It is Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, with Tom Perry from tmcplace.com. He's our preservation authority. Tom, we're in the summer months.
We are. Time for shipping stuff to your family and friends and getting out there and doing it. And we have so many people that email us and say, what's the best way to ship stuff? Because it is important.
Yeah, that's true. Why is it that summer is the time for shipping? You're absolutely right. I mean, it seems to me that when I've done this in the past and shared original photographs and things with people, or even copies, and I send them off to them, it's summertime. And I guess I'm thinking maybe it's because this is the time of family reunions.
Exactly.
Either you got one coming up or you got one that just passed and you're all exchanging things for that purpose, still tied to that reunion or just family gatherings.
Oh, absolutely. School's out. There's so many things that you can be doing. And most, like you said, you want to do stuff with your family. So people are going through their old stuff that are in their attic that they didn't want to go up there because it's so cold during the winter.
Right.
It was rainy season, wherever in the world you live. But it just makes it nice to be able to, in the summer, get everything together. However, summer's the worst time to store stuff if you're in a hot climate, and it's the worst time to ship stuff if you're in a hot climate.
Why is that?
Well, because you got to imagine, especially, and I tell people that call us all the time, don't ship on a Friday. because you're guaranteed your box is going to sit 2 days, hopefully in a warehouse, but possibly in the back of a UPS truck or U.S. mail truck or a FedEx truck. And even though it's protected and you're not worried about the elements except for the heat, and those trucks get hot. They talk about, the accidents with kids in hot cars, with animals in hot cars. Your box is going to be the same thing, and you've taken very good care of your VHS tapes and your audio cassettes and all these different things, and now they're sitting in a truck that's at 120, 130 degrees.
Man.
Even if you live in the Northeast, you think, oh, okay, it's nice and cool. If your truck's going to Texas, it's going to be going through the Midwest. It's going to be going through possibly Arizona, places that can really add the heat.
And it might even wind up in a place there over a weekend, right? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely. That's why if anything that you're going to be shipping is 5 days or under, always ship it on a Monday. If it's a long way, it's going to be 7 to 10 days. You're going to have a weekend anyway.
Nothing you can do about it.
Exactly.
All right. So talk about packaging for this stuff.
Okay, the most important thing is you want to protect your items. People are always asking, should I send it USPS? Should I send it FedEx, UPS, whomever? And most of them do a good job. I prefer in our area UPS. We got a great driver. He's awesome. We've never had a problem with UPS. However, it's not just a carrier, it's how you package your box. Because you think, the chance that something happens is zero. We've been doing this for over 40 years. We've never had anybody ship us something that got lost or ship something that got lost.
Right. It's rare. It is rare.
How often do you get in a car accident, but you have insurance? How often does your house burn down, but you have fire insurance?
Right.
You want to package it properly, and the best way to do that is what I call the 2-box system. You have a box, you have your styrofoam, your bubble wrap, depending on what it is you're shipping. Now, always remember, styrofoam is going to be a better insulator than bubble pack. Bubble pack is actually better as far as shaking things around if you're sending electronics, but styrofoam is the best thing to counter against heat and cold. And if you're really super scared and, these are such things that can never be replaced, I don't care what it costs, I want to do the best I can, then you want to go to home improvement center like Home Depot, Lowe's, someplace like that, and buy sheets of styrofoam and cut it into the sides of the inside of the first box. Then put your things in there with stuffing, whatever. Paper does nothing except fill space.
So this is like shipping meat almost,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. And it's a lot more important. You can replace that T-bone steak, but those, mom's recordings, that's it. You have it. So you make all 6 sides of the box styrofoam. You just build a little house like you're in Minecraft and put everything in there. Because that styrofoam is not only a protectant from damage, it's a protectant from the heat. So put a label inside your box. You want to put a label outside your box. And then what you do with step 2, we'll get to after the break.
All right, let's continue with this. Coming up in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chart Masters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartMasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chart Masters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chart Masters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chart Masters today at FamilyChartMasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chart Masters will give the greatest care to your family history.
When was the last time you heard your grandmother's voice or saw your family enjoying life back in the 1950s or 60s? If the reason is you haven't known what to do with your old recordings, videos, and films, here's your answer. The Multimedia Center in Salt Lake City.
We brought in a video project to the Multimedia Center, and overnight they duplicated it to DVD so we could meet our deadline.
The Multimedia Center, 2870 East, 3300 South, Salt Lake City. Open Monday through Friday, 10 to 6. Call 801-483-1717 or go to transferduplication.com.
Genies, it's Fisher with exciting news. The Weekly Genie, the official newsletter of Extreme Genes, is here. It's your Monday morning briefing on what's happening in the world of genealogy and family history and on Extreme Genes. Get all the details of jaw-dropping stories of discovery and keep up with the latest techniques in family history research. Get to know more about your favorite Extreme Genes personalities, and it's free. free. Sign up for the Weekly Genie now at extremegenes.com or the Extreme Genes Facebook page. And when you do, you'll receive David Allen Lambert's Top 10 Tips for Beginning Genealogists from the Chief Genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society. Sign up today for the Weekly Genie. All right, final segment this week for Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show, and extremegenes.com. Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, with Tom Perry from tmcplace.com. And we're talking about shipping stuff in the summer, and a lot of it happens for your family history material, audio tapes, home movies, old videos, old photographs. So if you're doing this in the hot months, as Tom mentioned, you got to be aware of the heat and the process and trying to avoid letting things sit in warehouses over the course of a weekend. Tom, you set up part one of this process of packaging things in a box with layers of styrofoam as walls around it to kind of keep the heat out. What else do they do?
That's exactly correct. Once you get that done, get like a plastic garbage bag and form that around the inside of the styrofoam where your goods are going to be, and then you wrap those in another envelope or a bubble pack or something like that so they're protected. Then tie up the plastic bag, get all the air out of it, and tie it up with a string or one of those little tie bands. And just in case it ends up in a place where it gets rained on or humidity, whether it's on an airport tarmac or whatever, then you've got another layer of protection. And make sure you have another card inside that plastic bag with your name, address, phone number, email address, all this kind of stuff. So if something happens, they can contact you. You close that all up. You put the last layer of styrofoam on the top. You close up the box. You seal it. You address it just like this is going to be your final box. Yet it's not. This is just box number one. Then you go and get a second box, which doesn't have to be much bigger than this box, because all you're going to do is need to have room to put some more styrofoam. I recommend at least an inch all the way around, and then that actually is a double protection. Then again, put a label inside that box. Then on the outside of the box, you want to put your final label and then your postage or whatever you're going to do, and make sure you seal up every side, not just the two seams, seal up the sides, everything. It could go through a dust devil. You have no idea what's going to happen, and this stuff can't be replaced. It's not like, okay, if it doesn't happen, I got another one.
So this is the best way, other than having an armed escort with a Brinks truck deliver it to your relative.
Exactly. And I think this is actually even better than the Brinks truck because you got a package better inside that hot Brinks truck.
Yeah, I suppose that's absolutely true.
But you can't overemphasize how important this stuff is because it's all irreplaceable. And you're talking about less than probably $5, $10 in material, so it's insignificant. And a lot of the stuff you're going to have laying around your house anyway. You bought a new television, you got styrofoam. There's just so many ways you can make this work for you, and it is so critical that you get everything packaged. And we have people that say, well, should I put all my tapes together? Should I send them in separate boxes? What should I do? Well, there's actually two theories. If you want to go ahead and send them all as separate items, that's going to cost so much more that it would be better to put them all in one box and then air them.
Yeah.
So instead of spending $10, $10, $10, and $10 on each one individually, go and bite the bullet and spend the $30 and have it shipped next day air or something like that. And again, don't do it on a weekend, on a Friday where it's going to sit in a truck for 2 days. Ship it on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or no later than Thursday. I recommend no later than Wednesday in case there's a hiccup, because that way the stuff's going to be to wherever your relatives are the next day. And make sure your relatives are going to be there.
Yeah, boy, that's a good thought too.
Oh, it is. Some people just assume that they're always going to be there. They might go away for the weekend, and that box is going to sit on their front porch for maybe the whole weekend or sit in a truck because it can't be delivered.
And then you got a porch thief to worry about. Oh, my gosh.
Exactly. There are so many things. This stuff's irreplaceable. You want to make sure things work. And a lot of times, if you're sending stuff to family, send it to them properly, make sure they're going to be there, rock and roll, and you'll be happy forever.
Great stuff as always, Tom. See you again next week.
My pleasure.
Well, as always, we have covered a lot of ground today, and thanks so much to our guest, Ken Nelson from FamilySearch.org, talking about what FamilySearch is doing now during the Centennial celebration of America's involvement in World War I and the Armistice anniversary, which is coming up in November. A lot to find at FamilySearch.org. Thanks also to Rick Pettit for sharing with us what he and his wife are doing, an amazing genealogical project that you might want to mimic in your own way. Hey, don't forget to sign up for our weekly Genie newsletter. You can do it through extremegenes.com or on our Facebook page. We'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for joining us. And remember, as far as everyone knows, we're a nice, normal family.